It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
You really haven't heard much from Kylie this week. Mrs. Happy Families has lost her voice. Say hi to everyone, Kylie.
Hello.
It's slowly coming back, and so we're trying to force out a podcast today because Mother's Day is coming up in just a couple of days, and well, we're excited, at least for our Australian audience. It's Mother's Day this Sunday. And Kylie, today on the podcast, we're going to do something we've never done before. There's an old radio game that politicians refuse to play. It's called the yes-no game. It's not the yes-no game where you're not allowed to say yes or no and people have got to trick you into saying yes or no. This is the yes-no game where every answer that you give has to be a yes or a no. Now, you can qualify it with one or two quick sentences after, but you've got to give me a yes or a no after each question. Mother's Day is coming up. I thought it could be fun to ask you a whole bunch of questions about being mum.
You know, I don't do anything fast.
That's one of the. So I'm just going to open up and give you a peek behind the curtain here for a sec. You hear an edited version of the podcast. Because one of the great challenges that I have, having once been a radio announcer, there's no such thing as dead air. Like that. You didn't say anything. So I'll say things. And if I was on the radio, my co-host would then say something back to me. I mean, I haven't been on the radio for 20 years, but once it's in your blood.
You're not paying me enough to be your co-host.
You are my co-host. Once radio's in your blood, it doesn't leave. And so I just have this expectation that as Kylie and I talk and banter, that Kylie's going to respond. But like I said, you get the edited version sometimes. Poor JR, our producer, he'll be sitting in the studio and he'll be like, is anyone going to say anything? Like, hello? Because nobody's saying anything. I've said my thing, and Kylie's, you like to process.
I do. It takes me a little bit of time to process.
Your brain works differently to my brain, and there's nothing the matter with that.
We'll just see how this game goes. I'm a little bit nervous. What are you going to ask me? If politicians won't play it, what are you asking me?
Well, that's because politicians won't give a yes-no answer. They've got their own agenda. So here are the rules. I've got a whole bunch of questions for you. This is going to be the entirety of the podcast. Questions about being a mum, questions about your experiences over the last 25 years of being a mum.
This kind of feels like filling out a survey when they don't have the right answer.
You must say yes or no. You can add an explanatory sentence now and then if you must, and you can pass once. So choose that time to pass very carefully.
What are you going to ask me?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Craig Bruce, our executive producer, is the one who sent the questions through.
Craig?
So,
he could be in big trouble.
Are you ready, Mrs. Happy Families?
Let's go.
Kylie Coulson. Have you ever fallen asleep on the couch from pure exhaustion?
Yes.
I thought you were going to give me more.
You said yes or no.
But the one or two sentences after makes it more fun. But yes, where else have you fallen asleep from pure exhaustion?
In a Billy Joel concert. That's definitely my claim to fame.
Right near the speakers. Have you ever forgotten to pick one of the girls up from school?
Oh, too many times.
Have you ever eaten a Mother's Day breakfast made by the girls and regretted the moment it went into your mouth?
No. There's been very few times that they've made me breakfast.
Our girls are pretty slack on Mother's Day. I remind them. I give them a lot of nudges. But you're the mum. You're not my mum. So it's their responsibility to make Mother's Day special for you.
Yeah, there's this thing called scaffolding.
Yeah. Well, no, wait, I do. Well, that's what
you have gotten better. But it took a pretty big barney on my end for you to step up.
It really did. Have you ever had an argument with your mother-in-law that you regret?
No.
We actually get on pretty well with my mum because we live 1,000 k's away. Did you underestimate a mother's love for their children before you felt it yourself?
100%. I spent 5 days in the hospital with Chanel, our eldest, and I don't remember sleeping a lot because I just couldn't get enough of her.
You want to inhale her?
Literally.
Kylie, do you ever have a sleep-in on the weekends and feel bad about it afterwards?
Never.
So then that's a double-barreled question. Do you ever have a sleep-in on the weekends?
Never.
Okay. So if you did, would you feel bad about it?
Never.
Have you ever compared yourself to other mums?
Always.
How's that worked for you?
Well, sometimes it works in my favour really, really well, but most of the time it doesn't.
Downward social comparison feels good, doesn't it? It's nice to punch down now and then. Have you ever wondered if you're doing it right?
More times than I can count.
Do you think that you'll always worry about our girls?
Yes.
Have you ever met a mum that really does seem to have it all figured out?
Yes. Over the years, there's been plenty of people that at the time, it felt like they had everything together. But as our friendship obviously developed and grew and we became more vulnerable with each other, I recognized that they didn't. But at the time, all I could see was that they were able to seemingly do everything so effortlessly. And for me, it just felt hard.
Do you ever think about what it would be like having a son?
Yeah, I do. I don't feel like I'm missing out, but I definitely have wondered.
Based on the experiences we've had watching other people with their sons, I don't feel like we're missing out either.
But I have wondered what it would be like and whether or not I would actually be able to pull it together.
Yeah. Do you feel any different now that you're a grandma?
Yeah, I do. I feel a lot more connected with myself and a lot more confident in my capacity as a parent.
One of the highlights of my life, genuine highlights of my life, is grandparenthood. I don't know quite how to put it into words. I know this is your yes, no for Mother's Day, but I can't help. I have to intrude now and then with something. There's just something unspeakably, magnificently wonderful about watching your own children with their children, especially when they're doing it well. I mean, and our daughter and our son-in-law are doing it so well. I think they're doing it far better than we ever did, especially with no experience. It's just an absolute delight.
I remember reading a reel a little while back, and it was just the acknowledgement that for some people, they get really upset about the extra attention their children get, the grandchildren get, and don't feel like their parents ever loved them the way they love their grandchildren. And the point of view that they were sharing was just the acknowledgement that this is actually an extension of the love that they have for you as their child.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. I watch whenever we interact with Indy, Chanel has just got the biggest grin on her face. Like
Yes.
she feels the love that we have for Indy vicarious.
She knows that that's how we love her.
Yeah.
And because we love her that way.
It's an extension of that. And it just, I watch it, it fills her cup so spectacularly. It's such a beautiful kind of circle of life moment.
Kylie, do you ever wish that you had the money for a cleaner and a maid? Do I even need to ask that question?
So I could go without the cleaner and the maid, but I would love a
cook,
chef.
A cook? Do you ever wish that someone else would make dinner tonight was the next question. I guess I don't need to answer that. That would be every night, every single night. That question, what's for dinner? I feel so bad when I ask it of you. Like I'll be in the office and I'm buried.
Do you really?
Oh,
you ask me every day.
But I feel terrible asking. I'm buried in work. I so badly just want to get into the kitchen and cook the meal so that you don't have to think about it. But I'm either so exhausted I can barely lift my legs, or I'm so snowed under with work and work commitments. Oh my goodness. It's got to be one of the hardest parenting questions there is. And it's got nothing to do with parenting. All right, just a couple more. Do you ever think about the house being empty and the girls being grown up? I mean, we've only got a half a dozen years or so and we're pretty much at the emptiness stage.
There's a part of me that's been looking forward to that day.
Yes.
For a very long time. But having had baby number 3 leave and now we're down to half.
Yeah, we've only got 3 kids at home.
It's actually heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's really, really challenging. And I think that the day that the house is empty is going to be a really sad day.
An extension of that, yes, no. Are you nervous for that stage of our lives together?
No, I'm not nervous for that stage of our lives.
We are going to have fun, right?
I think that one of the biggest challenges that we've had over our family life together has just been trying to find the balance between time together and time with our children. And I don't think that that's ever going to end. I look at each of our children and their needs and then add grandchildren to the equation. And I think that there's always going to be this wrestle between when is enough time. And because we have fostered some beautiful relationships between each of our children, I think it's always going to be a wrestle. It's always going to be a wrestle.
We have 3 questions to go, Kylie. Is there anything you haven't said to our girls that you would like to tell them?
I don't think so. I didn't have the best relationship with my mum growing up. And I consistently looked for outside sources to be the maternal figure that I needed in my life. And as a result, I have worked so hard to build nurturing, loving relationships with my girls. And I feel like we say all the things that need to be said. I feel like we say all the things we need to say.
Kylie, is there anything that you would change?
I think the only thing I would change is that I knew who I was a lot earlier on in the piece, that I had greater confidence in my own capacity and my own ability to mother my children the way they needed to be mothered.
That's a perfect segue into the last question for you. When you look in the mirror, who stares back at you?
I wasn't expecting that.
It's not a yes/no question.
It's not a yes/no question.
Kind of cheated on the last one.
It would be a woman who has given everything, literally everything, to not only bring these 6 amazing girls into the world, but who's sacrificed the very best that she has to give and offer for their betterment. That's what I see.
And that's what makes you an amazing mum. I love you, Kylie. Happy Mother's Day. And for everybody listening, thank you so much for participating, being a part of the Happy Families community. We love that you listen to the podcast. We hope that it inspires you to make your family happier and to create stronger relationships with those that matter the very most. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. Thanks so much for the questions, Craig, and for helping us to make the podcast what it is, and JR for the marvellous and patient editing that you do. Mums, we hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Mother's Day this weekend and that you feel loved. For more information about making your family happier, visit happyfamilies.com.au.